Let's talk about movies then. Today we're talking about a film called Your Monster, which is a rom-com horror musical, a feminist fairy tale set in the world of musical theatre. Dan is back. Good to see you again, Dan.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me again.
I looked at the trailer for this and I thought it looked like fun. It's the sort of film that I think is good at Christmas because, you know, we don't like to take stuff too seriously at Christmas time. We just want to kick back and just enjoy something that's a bit frothy.
Yeah, I thought it was reasonably frothy. I guess I'll go straight in. I have some issues, which we know. I think.
Yeah, me too.
Putting everything else to one side, getting a horror comedy to work, I think, is really difficult, and that's predominantly what this is. Because you've either got to make it either really funny, but it doesn't have to be that scary, or it can be quite scary but not that funny, or a bit of both. So, like American Werewolf for London, I think is like the perfect balance of actually quite intense and scary, but also genuinely makes you laugh and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely, I'd agree with you. And Shaun of the Dead as well. It's a pretty good match.
Yeah. It's hard to get, but when you get it right, it's like such magic. And I think with this, I just felt that I didn't find it that funny, and I didn't find it really scary at all. So it kind of left me a little bit like, well, it was a light watch. It passed the time. It just didn't really give me a hell of a lot in terms of either end of the scale, because I was just waiting for like a big laugh or just something to happen. So that was kind of.
I know what you mean about the scares. I certainly was not scared by any of it. I think the ending was quite effective, but I think it's always difficult, isn't it, with a multi-genre movie to get everything right. Like you say, I think some comedy horrors do it well. I think they're able to balance that, but I think it can feel a bit clunky, and I think this felt a little bit clunky in parts, although I did actually laugh. I thought it was quite funny. I thought the script was good, and I noticed that Sharon Horgan was one of the exec producers as well, which I was quite surprised by.
I noticed that on the way in, and it kind of did make me think, oh, this actually, like, if Sharon Horgan's involved, it might work. There were definitely some charming moments, and there was some definitely, I mean, I thought, in a way, Melissa Barrera was the best part of it, because I just think there's something about her that's quite watchable. I think she was just done a disservice a little bit by just the tone of the film just felt a little bit like it couldn't land on what it wanted to be. The beginning of it was almost like parody, like her being sad about the breakup was like very comedy moment, then it went kind of a bit more serious and horror. So it's like, well, what are you trying to achieve here? I wasn't quite sure whether it wanted me to laugh or to be scared. I was just confused by it.
So it's directed by Caroline Lindy, who I was watching today somebody did an interview with her, and she seems really nice. She seems really smart, and I think it is a smart film. But I think that problem is throwing the musical elements in as well. It was like, okay, these songs sound good, but you don't really see a lot of them. You don't have many of those songs throughout the whole thing. I think if it had been like a musical rom-com horror, like a proper, you know, like more songs from the beginning, because you don't really see those so much at the beginning, and I think it does feel like it's a bit shoehorned.
Yeah, it was a little bit padded out of like, well, now we've got to go through the kind of the rigmarole of watching the musical bit as well. And I think for me, kind of the motivations of the two main characters are just a bit weird. So you've got the main character played by Melissa Barrera, who, I don't know, like, I feel like we're supposed to think that this boyfriend is this really evil guy, and it's like he broke up with you and didn't want you to be in a musical. Essentially.
Let's talk about that. So she's battling the illness, isn't she? She's come through that relationship that didn't work. I think they were together like 4 or 5 years. Although I never got the impression that they were really together, because I know they're meant to seem distant when you see them get together further on into the story. But yeah, so she's overcoming that illness, but she's overcoming that breakup, and she returns to her mum's house, although you never see her mum, I don't think. Do you?
You know, it's really weird. It's like, oh yeah, your mum's there, but you never see her. She doesn't really. It's just a weird choice. Like, why has she gone to her mum's? But she has to, I guess, because of the monster that lived there. This is when it gets really weird. So one, I think the monster itself was, there just was no light and shade. Like, he was almost from the beginning not a monster. He was always like this kind of bro that was just in her house. Yeah. And there was no like progression from scary monster, get out of my house, to I'm going to sit and watch films with you and have pizza. Like, it was so quick.
It was really sudden.
She had sex with him, Phil. I know. And like, but in my head, he's an imaginary monster in your head your childhood, and now he's an actual physical person that you have fallen in love with and you're now having sex with.
I thought that was really odd, because obviously this goes back, it shows her as a child kind of closing the closet door, because that the monster's in there, and this monster is meant to have been throughout her life. But he is funny. I mean, I laughed at some of his lines. I thought he was great, actually. It's Tommy Dewey, isn't it, that plays the monster?
That's great. And I thought the actor himself, again, it goes back to the script, because him and Melissa Barrera, I think, did such a good job with what they were given. But you're right, he wasn't a monster. Like, he was actually like a reasonably handsome man with a bit of a pronounced chin and long hair.
I know. I kind of thought, actually, I could see why she's charmed by him, because I was. Yeah. And then I looked at Tommy Dewey, because I didn't really know much about Tommy Dewey. He's done a lot of films. Yeah, I think he handled the characteristics well. He got some good lines in as well, and there was a good chemistry, I think, between them. But it didn't sit well with me. I just thought that's kind of weird, but I just went along with it because it's meant to be fun, and I don't think we're meant to take it that seriously, to be honest.
That's it. And I think I'll readily admit, I have a lot of difficulty finding, like, having fun with something when I'm like, does that make any sense? If I get hung up on the logic of it. So I think if you could kind of put a lot to one side, you might quite like it. I just felt like it could have had a lot more edge, and actually, like, if he'd become more monstrous and she'd kind of lost control of him, like if he'd kind of assessed that the boyfriend was scum, her friend was like part of she was cheating on him with the ex-boyfriend, if he'd started to go on a bit of a rampage and like she couldn't control that anymore, that would have been maybe like a really fun turn for the film to find a bit of direction. I just thought it kind of wilted by the end. It never really got going.
Melissa Barrera, I got her completely wrong as well, because I have to say, and I'm not being personal with Melissa Barrera, because I thought she was really good in this, and I really warmed to her, and I thought she showed a lot of light and dark. There's a lot of emotions that she expresses, and I had no idea that she had a musical background either, or musical theatre background, and I thought she was really good. She really won me over in this, although I have to say, in Scream, I wasn't won over by her in Scream. I didn't think there was a lot of complexity to her acting in that.
I agree. And when they brought in all that kind of weird, like, her dad is Billy Loomis thing as the ghost. But I don't know, I think in hindsight, I didn't mind Scream 5 when I first saw it. I've lost a lot of love for it over the years. I didn't like Scream 6 at all. And actually, I'm quite pleased that whole group has been kind of abandoned for the next film. But yeah, I thought she was good. I didn't know she was in the Heights. That's kind of where she started. I haven't seen that.
Yeah. And she's got a good voice. She's got a good pair of lungs. I mean, like I say, the songs I thought sounded good, and they did sound like proper theatre songs as well. It wasn't just like, oh, let's rush produce this song. It could have worked, I think, had they had that all the way through. But I just thought, particularly at the end, when that musical element, which I thought did work, that ending worked.
Yeah.
I think it could have been more of a shocker had it built up to it properly.
Yeah, because it just sort of happened and then it ended so abruptly. It was literally like, well, there's the thing that's happened, click credits and we're done.
Kind of knew it was going to happen, to be honest. Could see it coming.
Yeah. And I don't know, it just didn't feel like a particularly like great ending for her as a character.
Because the ex that she splits up with he's the theatre director, isn't he, of the show that she was in, but she left because of the breakup.
It hadn't been cast. Basically, she'd workshopped with him, and she'd sort of stood in as the main character while they were doing it.
Yeah.
So this is my whole issue with the film, is it was never her part, and like, you've broken up, so it seems natural that you probably wouldn't go to the audition and get a part in it. Like, even that bit was weird. Like, why would you do that? And then is surprised when she kind of loses it and pulls him out.
Yeah, I mean, he was a douchebag, but I think it was so hammy in a way. It was so over the top that... But then again, it goes back to what I was saying, I guess we're meant to go along with it because it's fun, and it is. I did enjoy it, but I just... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too harsh. I thought it was okay. I think I liked it more than you did.
I was grumpy with it. I was kind of wanting it to be done. And again, I get it. I'm a bit of a fun sponge. Like, if something annoys me, and there were a couple of bits. Like, there was a very early scene with the best friend, and she's saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'll be with you," and like, I'm never going to leave you. And then within 10 seconds, I was like, "Here we go. She's going to get a call, and she's going to have to leave." And it just was like, oh, of course. Or like the boyfriend, she has sex with him, and as soon as they're literally getting dressed, he's like, "I'm going to kick you out of the show."
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's so clunky, and it's just so like I just felt like a lot of it, we've seen a lot of it before. A lot of the things right now in a very cliche, like the scene with her and the monster are watching a film and they argue over the remote, and then he cries because he loves musicals. I've just felt like a lot of it was really derivative.
And also, I do wonder who it's aimed at as well, because I don't think it's really aimed at horror fans, because horror fans will probably say what you were saying, it's not scary. And yes, there is a bit of violence in there, without spoiling, because I think it would appeal to teens. I don't mean that, in a patronising way. I just think teens would get the whole kind of romance thing, and it does feel like there's a lot of angst in there as well, and it's fun as well. It's a good film for Christmas. I just don't know whether, I just think it's mixed. That whole kind of multi-genre thing. I think it should have gone one way or the other, to be honest.
Agreed. And I think there's a modern horror challenge at the moment with this, because I think a lot of studios have started to make horror films, which they would never say it, but they're marketing them towards teenagers. So the original Meghann, before they released the uncut version, was clearly edited to get 14-year-olds in the cinema. Yeah. Strangers Chapter 1, looking back at that was just pure teenager nonsense, because it's crap, essentially, but it's kind of the kind of crap that people will go and pay 10 quid to go and get a bit of popcorn and watch.
Yeah.
But because I've been watching horror for years, I find it so hard now to enjoy it, because I'm like, I know what this is for. And you're right, I feel like this is the only film that could be really enjoyed by like a predominantly teenage audience, because I just don't know what anyone else is going to get out of it.
Because it's an hour and 45 minutes, I think, which is pretty long actually for a film that is a little bit wafer thin in terms of where the plot is going, because we kind of know what's going to happen some aspects, because we have seen it before.
I was on my laptop wiggling my mouse being like, how much longer has this got to go for? That's not a good sign. I mean, that tends to be, I either get distracted by my phone and start reading about the film, or I'll be just like wanting it to fit, to keep me wanting to keep going to the end.
I think its intentions were good. I think it was probably just too ambitious.
I love the aesthetic of it, like the whole New York. There was a real coziness to it, actually, almost quite Christmassy. So that New York setting, the kind of the theatre angle, there was lots to like. I just feel like it could have had like 2 or 3 script rewrites to just really refine, well, what story are you trying to tell here? Because I still don't really know what point it was trying to make. Even with the ending, I'm like, well, did that actually happen? Was it the monster? Is the monster real? She had sex with the monster, as you assume he is, but
it still keeps coming back to that, which I just find really odd.
Oh, and that's, again, we talked about like cliches. The scene with Shakespeare. Oh, he starts reading it, and I'm like, of course he's really good, and she's enraptured by him reading some bloody like Shakespeare story. There were just moments I just thought, I can't do this.
So we're going to go for a final score then. Star rating, which we were talking about earlier before, which could be kind of difficult, because I think if you're set in the middle, you can't really give 2.5 stars, because we don't do halves.
We don't do halves. I would have, because I do on my channel, I give halves and I do out of 10. So I'm going to have to be harsh. If I can't give it a 3 out of 5, it just feels like unduly generous. 2 out of 5 feels quite mean. And I think it's probably personal taste that's just not for me at all. It's not walk out of the cinema bad like Strangers Chapter 1, which I mentioned earlier. Like, that was terrible, but it just wasn't for me. So yeah, it's 2 out of 5 for me.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going for 3, because I did think it had its moments, and I thought it could have been a really good film, like really, really fun. But I just thought it was too muddled. I think had they, got that kind of direction clearer, and also what it wanted to be, I think if it had more songs in and gone out full musical. I mean, what's that musical? There's a musical horror that came out at Christmas, I think, a couple of years ago. What was that called? That was quite good.
Oh, like a West End one? It could have been the second half, then becomes a bit more fantastical. And then it doesn't matter so much about, is the monster real or not? But they almost wanted to keep the whole film in the real world.
Yeah.
And just make us believe that this could really happen. And I was like, well, okay, I just don't get it. It's just weird.
Yeah, I think I wanted more comedy as well, because it started off really funny. I was laughing at those gags and I thought it was well written, and I kind of went along with it thinking, yes, this is just ridiculous and fun. But then the tone does shift, and tonally it becomes really serious. It's like, no, it's not that kind of film. I didn't want that. I don't want that serious romance. I get it that they're romantically attached, but I kind of wanted it to be just stupid.
You're right, because actually from about halfway in, it's not funny at all. Like, actually, it's quite whiny. The characters all kind of just start arguing with each other. I mean, her and the best friend hate each other. There's the other lead actress who then, there's some conflict with her. There's some conflict with the director. Like, it just isn't that fun. And the first half is, as much as it's a bit cheesy, like at least it's whipping along with stuff we've seen before, but it's got a bit of heart to it.
So it's Your Monster in the UK and Irish cinemas from the 29th of November. Go and check it out. If you are going to see it, let us know. Drop a comment down below. Check out Dan's channel as well, which is...
Nancy Boys. Haven't done anything for a while, but I will be doing... I'm actually looking to do a bit of a wrap-up for the year of the horror that's been out, so that'll be coming in the next few weeks.
Excellent. Go and check out the channel. Good to see you, Dan, and thank you everybody for watching. See you next time.
Thanks, Bill.